Hi, I'm Annette. I work at Gray Street Media.
Hi, I'm Gerard, and I'm a tax manager with HGA CPAs.
So we both work for the HGA group, which is kind of crazy that it's marketing and accounting in one building. We also have like wealth and law and insurance, all that kind of stuff. So it is pretty wild that I get to talk to a tax person today. That is not a crossover that happens very often.
No, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's cool. We work down the hall from each other and everything. But when you think about tax and marketing, you wouldn't necessarily think the two of them are together. But here we are.
So that's so crazy. How did you get into tax? Like, why tax?
It's a good question. I think what I enjoy the most about tax, I should probably maybe start off by saying more like what I don't like doing.
It's a good way to go.
I'm not a big fan of audit and assurance and checklists and, you check this materiality and, this variance is, 0.2% off the standard. It doesn't really do anything for me.
Did you have to do that for a while?
When I was articling,
Okay.
It's kind of a necessary evil as part of getting your hours and so on and so forth. The nice thing is once you get your designation, you can kind of pick and choose what you're going to do. And it's been great. So for me, I think what I enjoy the most about tax is the fact that, there's the cliche that no 2 days are the same. But and it's the same in tax.
I would never think that. I would never think no 2 days are the same in tax because it's a lot of numbers, but I'm sure there's like a little bit of creativity that goes into it too.
100%. And that's creativity is, it's funny you think tax and creativity and you automatically think, fraud and jail and all those things you don't necessarily want. But at the same time, it's creative in the fact that, the Income Tax Act is the act and it's the law of the land, but there's also interpretations and court cases that help us to, work with a client to, it's like, I can take this path with a client because this court case tells me that I get to do it.
So are you caught up on the news? Are you watching the news all the time for these types of things?
I have to be, you have to be in order to be able to do this job. Is
that like Financial Times? Like where do you find this information?
To be honest, a lot of it's through LinkedIn.
Okay, cool.
So I do follow a lot of, lawyers and, tax experts, bigger nerds than me.
Yeah.
And so I go through that. There's a lot of professional development courses. Like I'll be heading to Saskatoon in June for a conference for amongst the Prairie provinces.
So it's just other people like you, one giant room.
That's exactly it.
I can't even imagine.
I enjoy it because I enjoy being with clients. I enjoy being out with people. So being able to go do those types of things in person, it's great. Some people are like, oh my God, do you read the Income Tax Act? And if you've seen it, you've walked past my desk and you've seen that like massive 3,000 page Income Tax Act that's one book of the two, and you're oh my gosh. But
you know how to reference it. You got to highlight it.
Exactly. But what does like learning look like for you? Like, I mean, I know there's, obviously like you're looking at the trends on TikTok and all this other stuff.
It's a lot of being on social media, definitely. But I think about, your conferences and things you've gone to. Taylor and I have gone to conferences kind of similar, and it's super valuable and impactful because things are changing all the time, especially on social media. So the one we got to go to had a guy from TikTok like showcasing how TikTok's growing and how to use TikTok. It was very cool. And there was, tons of other stuff like that. People talking about accessibility online, different like things that now we're all together in a group of creatives and we can all kind of talk about it or whatever. So, and everyone's so open to learning from each other. And I think that's part of, the creative side of it is there's no necessarily right answer all the time. So it is like trying things out, being creative, getting ideas from other people and that kind of thing.
Of course. Is there, I know for you, but it's probably not the same day twice, the same as me to a certain extent. But, and some days, I mean, obviously if you're coding a website or you're doing, then it's just sitting in front of the computer and just clicking and everything, that's got to be, there's those days that aren't necessarily the greatest, but have you had that moment where, you're like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. Like, this is awesome. I love my job.
Yeah.
Like what's that look like for you?
I think for me, like, it's nice to have a plan in your head of how your day is going to go. So like, from 10 to 12, I'm going to do this or whatever. But sometimes it's the days that are totally derailed that are the best. And that's why I like working in a group with 5, like we're in a room, 5 people in a room. and one person could be like, ooh, what about this idea for this client? And then all of a sudden it's just our chat. If anyone looked at our team's chat, it is wild, some of the ideas that are in there, but that's part of the fun of it. So I think that it's, for me especially, it's like the ideas and thinking like, what could this world look like for this client or for HGA group? That's some of the most fun for me, is the events and stuff. Like, what can we get these tax accountants to do? Like, can we get them to throw a grad cap in the air that we made, or like, dress up in full 70s attire? Like, gonna try that out. So stuff like that.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? So yeah, I think for me, like, I don't know, do you work a lot with other people? Like, for me, it's collaborative, right? We're all kind of doing things together. No one's working on a project by themselves, really.
No, and it's the same with me. Like, okay. I do a lot of collaboration. Like, I've got Tyson, the tax partners, next door to me. So I pop over to him and say, hey, I want to do this. Does this make sense to you? Am I on the right track? Or the one group, I talk with an awful lot is HGA Law and the great folks over there. Because so much of what I do, it's interpreting legislation, but there's also the transactions I'm putting together have that legal component. It's got to get into a minute book. It's got to do things. So while I'm thinking about the Income Tax Act, there's the Business Corporations Act, there's the Canadian Act, there's the other legal end of things that I may not necessarily have an idea about. Yeah. What I find is,
do they shut you down a lot? Are they like, oh no?
Yeah, sometimes, but then also I will get the kind of the raised eyebrow, you want to do what? Like,
nice. Like little things like that.
It's like, but for me, I think that's kind of the coolest part about being in this collaborative environment with so many different organizations and entities under one roof, is I can walk down the hall to the paralegal's office and say, why did you put this resolution together this way? That's not what I meant. Yeah. And they're like, well, you said this. And whereas, if I was working at another firm that doesn't have that same collaboration, I have to send an email. Right. And then I'm waiting a day or two.
And they, like, even our team, like, knows that client also. So they're 100%. Like, oh, this could have been what he meant for this situation or whatever. They already know.
Exactly. So I'm able to go down the hall and I can get that answer in 5 minutes. What with other places, it can take a day.
Totally.
If you're lucky, a couple hours. But that's the part that I love the most, is the fact that I'm able to
You can even just meet at the coffee machine. Like, hey, what'd you think about that? Great.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that has happened on occasion where I'm like, I've had an instruction letter in my hand and I'm like, I need to get a coffee before I can go talk to the lawyer. And he happens to be in the kitchen. I'm like, oh, well, while we're both waiting for a coffee, like, what do you think?
Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
It's fun.
We've done a little bit of work with law recently. Mostly just clients kind of starting a separate business or starting, everyone needs marketing when you're trying to tell the world about your new business. So we've had a couple clients like that, and usually it's like lease agreements and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
I'm like, do you know any lawyers? I'm like, yes, we do know some lawyers. And it's so easy. So, and then they just totally take care of it.
Well, even on their end, I'm sure you get it too, where they're like, you get Jason or Ryan, there's one of them over there. It's like, hey, Annette, like, this guy just signed a lease agreement on this, pickleball, for example. Exactly. And like, they need a new website, or they need some help launching they're just expanding locations. And I'm sure you probably get some clients that way.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And I mean, marketing, maybe tax is similar to this too, but marketing's like here's your website. Like, you can see it. It's a product. But then it's the other side of it is like the creative brains behind it. You don't necessarily see all the idea generation or whatever, but there is still like a physical product at the end of the day.
100%.
So it's really easy to be like, your website sucks. You need a new one, right? So
well, and I think for me, there is actually, it's funny you say creative. You wouldn't necessarily think creative. I mean, we talked about creativity and tax before, but like, I find a lot of clients, it's like, oh my God, can you just like get to the finish? Like, tell me where I have to sign. Right. Of course, what I do, there's elements of risk, and clients have to be on board with what they're doing. But I actually get a chance, it sounds crazy, but I get a chance to be creative too. I mean, it's through PowerPoint, but nice. If I give a client a 15-page instruction letter, they're going to be like, I don't understand what this is and this. Yeah. But if I put it on PowerPoint and say, okay, this is what your opening structure looks like. Step 1.
Love that.
I'm going to do this. Yeah. Step 2. And I use black and white and red for the changes. Oh, no. So there's not a lot of colors. I mean,
maybe we should collaborate more.
I kind of think we're going to have to.
Yeah. Hilarious. That's awesome. So what would you say is like your most rewarding part of your job? What lights you up when you're like, ooh, I can deliver this to a client or whatever?
I think overall, like, and it's the same for all of us, but nobody wants to work to just give everything they earn to the government. And I totally understand that. I'm in the same boat. But, you know, paying tax isn't a bad thing. It means you made some money. It's just paying too much. That's the issue.
Yeah.
And for me, I'll give you a great example of, you know, I do a lot of work with estate planning and helping, you know, successful clients to figure out, okay, well, what's my estate going to have to send to Ottawa when I pass away? Yeah. And it's funny, if you had told me when I was in college that I'd be doing a lot of talk about death, I would have said you were crazy.
That's so wild. Hey, when you sit back and think, you're like, wow, I just
went there, and it's like, how do you find a way to say it without saying you're going to die, you know, without being like that.
Everyone is. So.
Exactly. So I think for me, about a year ago, I was sitting down with a couple clients, and they, you know, had amassed a pretty decent fortune in their corporation, and they're looking for a way to shut it down because they're like, we don't need this anymore. Right. And so I looked at their plan, I looked at where they were at, and I said, okay, well, if you were going to just shut everything down right now, or if you were to unfortunately pass away today, your estate would be paying well over $1.5 million in tax.
Right.
That sucks. So what can we do about it?
Yeah.
So we were able to come up with a plan where we were effectively able to save them about $600,000.
Nice.
And
that's insane.
It was crazy when I looked at it. And yes, when I presented it, it requires paying a significant amount of your fortune to the CRA.
Right.
And I think in this case, it worked out to about $750,000. Yeah. And I said, yes, these are probably the biggest checks you were ever going to write. And I understand it. But I said, at the end of the day, it did two things. It saved them, $600,000. And then when they said, well, what does this mean? And I explained, you know, you get some credits that you're able to now withdraw some money tax-free. You're effectively prepaying some tax. Yeah. And they started talking about their son, and he had, you know, a bit of a rough life, and, you know, things hadn't worked out for him, and they wanted to be able to help him. Yeah. And, you know, the mom was sitting across from me, and she's like, you mean with this, I could take the money out, we can pay my son's mortgage off? And I said, yeah, if you want to, you can go ahead and do that.
So you're like impacting people's lives. Like, this is huge.
The look on her face.
Yeah.
I can do that. Like, I said, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's your money. You've already paid the tax. You can withdraw it at any point whenever you want for whatever purpose. Yeah. And just that look, it was unbelievable.
Like, yes, he'll click on the way out.
I did. Oh, that's exactly. I think I high-fived, like Tyson was in the meeting, and I think I high-fived him on the way out, or Sean, one of them. I'm just like, that was fun.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and that's the part where it's like, there's the boring days where it's, you know, you're reading legal briefs about whatever thing is going on with CRA or whatever changes the Department of Finance is putting through. And there's those briefs and things, but there's days when I get to sit in front of a client. And I'm not presenting financial statements anymore. Right. But I get to present something that helps them.
Yeah. Like a solution, a creative solution.
Yeah, it's a creative solution. And I think that's really what gets me out of bed in the morning.
I love that. That's such a great story.
Yeah.
So you've worked at other accounting firms, but then you came to HGA. Did you know about the group before you started at HGA, or was that kind of an added bonus when you got here? You're like, wow, look at this group.
Well, it was a little bit of both. I'd heard about the firm, like I'd known about HGA, the accounting side, for a few years. Okay, cool. But when I was applying and starting to do my research on my next place to call home, I then kind of went to Google, went to the website, and saw this amazing website that apparently some amazing people put together, you know. Nice. And I was like, you know, this is actually kind of neat. Like, at that point, I wasn't 100% sure I was going to do tax, but then I'm like, yeah, this is a good spot. And as I started to, you know, interview and the things like that, it was cool to be able to sit there and realize, oh my gosh, my clients can come here, sit here for an afternoon, and literally they can have four or five departments come through, where anywhere else they're going to have to do a Teams meeting here, then they're going to have to run to the south side for this, and they're going to go to the north side to deal with their insurance person, or they can just come to our boardroom and sit down and have a coffee, and just people come in and do their thing. Yeah. How about you with when you were coming over to HGA? Did you know kind of about how the group?
I didn't. Marketing, like our Grey Street Media kind of was born of the group. Oh, okay. It wasn't, you know, so we were kind of early on. But what I worked by myself at a nonprofit. So I was the one marketing person, which was great. I learned a lot of things. I had to figure a lot of things out. But I just craved being part of a team. And so as soon as I found out about this agency, I wanted to be part of an agency. I also love the idea of doing a different thing every day, having many clients, doing all kinds of, we don't really have a niche per se. So we, do nonprofits like camps, board game cafe, restaurants, but also like oil and gas. There's tons of different things that we work on. So that's what I really wanted that. And so coming to Gray Street, it's 1,000% that. It is, collaboration every day. But then more than that, it's not just this team, it's a big team. So it's pretty cool that like we can collab, shift support, IT and marketing, they kind of overlap. So there is definitely that support there too. But one of the cool things that's kind of starting to happen now is integrated financial services. So John Lee is obviously like a pretty good friend. He literally works in the office next door, which again, very cool. So just getting, some of the actual like numbers data, dollars data to line up with marketing efforts, which is, it makes total sense. Like every business owner should want to know that.
Of course.
And it's cool for us because we are the creative, whatever, dollars. We don't really want to deal with that, but John loves that. So having kind of that collaboration, more and more clients should do that. Because
of course.
How cool is that to know those numbers?
Well, and I think about it when I'm talking to clients, it's like, oh my God, my advertising went up this much. I don't know if it makes sense. Right. This is stupid. This is a waste of my money. And it's just, the common sense approach is when times are tough, you increase your marketing.
Totally.
Or
right?
you rejig it,
Yeah.
which is like, if you're going to be cutting anything, it shouldn't be the promotions and marketing because that's the time to build it.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like a lot of it does come down to experimentation. Like you're not always going to know what works, but you kind of hone in on it, right? You find your ideal customer, you see what's working and what's not. We look at data too. It's just not dollars data necessarily.
No, it's impressions.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then the other thing about marketing is it's tough sometimes to track. I've seen social posts like a year ago and I haven't bought the product yet, but I might 2 years later, right?
Right.
So, but it is cool to see some of the numbers. Like one of them is a restaurant. So if we post 3 times a month about the specific burger on the menu, how are sales? Is that increasing sales? And it correlates a lot, even donations, because we work with a lot of nonprofits. So seeing how their either organic campaign that we've created for them, or sometimes we run ads too, like how is that impacting their donations? So numbers and marketing, they go hand in hand.
For sure. It's funny you talk about doing work with not-for-profits and that you've worked for a not-for-profit. Like we think about, the like bricks and mortar retail and, you can do reels showing a new product or a new cocktail or things like that.
Yeah.
How is it different with not-for-profits? And like, what is it about that that's like just so amazing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they're heart initiatives, right? The people, we love working with people who love their business, and in nonprofits, they love their nonprofit, right? It's a heart thing. And it's also a lot more about storytelling. So obviously a product, you can see it, feel it, whatever, showcase it. But in nonprofits, it's a lot of hearing the stories, like how people have been impacted by this, how this has changed their lives or whatever. So that's fun for us. We get to really dig deep. We get to usually meet some of the people that have been impacted by whatever organization it is. So like we had a camp and we got to talk to one of the kiddos who grew up at camp and then became a leader at camp. And it was just like right by the fire, had a video of him talking. It's just stuff like that it's really rewarding because you're sharing like the heart of this organization.
And it's funny when you talk about heart, it's cool because going into that, obviously, we sponsor a golf tournament every year, which you and your team are heavily involved in.
We now
and
do
last
golf
year,
tournaments.
It's fun. It's great, but it's so cool, when you have people from the organizations coming out and you're actually able to see, it's like, we're raising a bunch of money for some very worthwhile causes, but to be able to, see the people who are impacted by it. I was
wild.
at the one last summer there with you guys and for Cerebral Palsy Alberta, and it was so cool to be able to sit there and just watch what you guys do.
Yeah, and like that makes it better, right? You can put on a golf tournament, people could come out, golf, whatever, but you're raising money for this very important cause. And then especially to have someone here who has been impacted by it is like, that's your heart personally, which is very cool. So it's like, we're doing this golf tournament and all this work and all this effort is going into it, but it's like really making a difference.
It totally is.
And it's cool to see an event come to life. We don't do a lot of external events. It's mostly HGA. We do some, influencer events and stuff like that, but it's cool to see the vision of like what a golf tournament could be come together. Signage, marketing that checks out, social media posts, getting people engaged, email marketing that goes with an event. So there's a lot of elements that we can kind of just take and own, which is fun. So
of course. Yeah, you don't do a lot of external events. Are you looking at maybe trying to do more, do you think? Or like what does that future look like?
Yeah, I don't know. None of us are like, I don't think any of us would say we're event planners, but we do have a lot of experience now. You know, we know like got to make sure there's garbage cans everywhere. Like people need to put their garbage, you know, so we've learned a few things along the way, and we kind of thrive on problem solving, figuring things out. So if someone came to us with an event, we would definitely look into how we could make it work. But yeah, it's becoming more, we've have a lot of like kind of restaurant-y type clients. So, you know, one of the ways to get the word out about that is influencer stuff. Events like at the restaurant is also kind of a thing, you know, getting an expert to come in and showcase some tequila. Like that was one of them. So stuff like that. But yeah, it kind of depends on the client, I guess, as far as events go. HGA for sure. So 100%. Many HGA events. But
that tequila one, I wasn't there, but
oh, it's so good.
If you guys have seen the reels, wow.
Definitely go to the next one. I think they're gonna do like gin or I don't know, something else.
Sweet.
So
I'll be there.
Yeah. There you go. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good chat.
Absolutely.
For accounting.
This was a lot of fun.
I think that's you know, a good chat of like where we collaborate and kind of we're both part of the same group, so we do have a lot of similarities, and it's cool to hear the creative side of tax versus the creative side of marketing. And
it's things you wouldn't necessarily think of on tax, but you know, this is fun. It was great to be able to, you know, get a chat. I mean, we obviously work down the hall from each other and have the last, you know, couple of years, and it's been great, but it's nice to actually just be able to sit down and just to chat about it in general. So no, this has been fun. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you want to chat with either a tax person, a marketing person, or a lawyer or a wealth planner, we can hook you up. So reach out to us. We would love to chat with you about any of your business, things that you have going on, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot.